And thank them for making the game and making it so fun. Because, like, I'm going to talk about stuff that I would have changed or stuff that I personally didn't relate to. But whenever I do this kind of thing, people tend to think that I'm being harsh or aggressive or that I didn't like it or whatnot. It's just that the things that are good, I feel like I already talked about. Like, their engine, I don't know what engine they're using. Maybe it's just Unreal Engine or Unity or something. But what they've done with it is phenomenal. Like that big fucking ship at the end and getting to go in with Alan and then have it move and go through all that. Like, all of that stuff is insane. And having a whole game based around water, I've said it the first time, is just phenomenal. Water is usually the thing in games that makes frame rates chug, and they made a whole fucking game out of it, again. Like, the stuff that they do in the underwater environments and the shadows and the lighting and the textures and stuff that they use and the art style and the imagination that they have for all of this is phenomenal. They do incredible work like this. Sound design is always top-notch. Soundtrack was impeccable in this one. I loved everything about the experience. The stuff that I have issue with is kind of like gameplay related. And again, having played the early access before, I'm going to say it again, that having seen what the original intention for the story was, and then going back and playing this one just kind of felt a little flatter to me. Because I didn't really, I know, you want them, I wanted to feel for the sisters, I wanted to feel for Sam, I wanted to feel emotionally connected to that narrative, but I just didn't. It wasn't connecting with me at all, and then it was just kind of over. And that was kind of it. Unless I missed something huge, and then that's a big blunder on my part. But it kind of felt like it just wrapped up. And then there was no other markers for me to go anywhere else. So, I don't know. If there was other stuff to find, I'm really sorry. The game wasn't really pointing me in many directions towards the end. But I feel like what I would have liked to see, and what I thought the original story was going to be, that when they were rewriting it, was that I liked the idea of working on the planet already. I love that idea of like waking up, going about your routine, getting your cup of coffee, going out, opening that door and seeing like your surroundings and being like, wow, yeah, I work here. And then going into that phase gate area. It would have been cool if you went in and you were like monitoring that as an Alterran all this time. Like you worked for Alterra. This is what my idea for a different take on this story would be, where my sort of narrative choices would go. That's not to say this story is bad. I don't want anybody saying that because the devs work really, really hard on it anyway, and it was still good. It's just not for me personally. And many of you probably love that story and probably will hate what I'm about to say, but I would have loved like going to that phase gate right at the start of the game. Then it's like, oh, we've been working here for ages, and there's like this little backstory that's unspoken, but it's kind of like you feel like you're doing that routine again, where you're going in and there's always been something in there like an architect cube that's just not waking up, and you've been trying for like a year, day after day, trying to get this thing to wake up, and then suddenly it alights and you don't know why, and then it's Alan and he talks to you and he connects with you, but only you, and he doesn't say anything to Alterra but warns you about them. And then Sam is up on the ship, still alive, and she works for Alterra and is talking to you through your day. You start off the game and it's like, hey, just another day in like 45, 46B, huh? How is it? Oh, I heard from Mom today. Like that kind of like banter back and forth. So it's like, okay, sisters. And then after you get the stuff with Alan, Sam starts asking you questions and you're kind of going a bit silent on her because Alan's telling you stuff about Alterra where you're like, oh, maybe Alterra isn't what they're all cracked up to be. And he's like, no, they wanted to use my technology for bad. And then Sam is on the ship and she's working with you against Alterra. So it's like your man on the inside or your woman on the inside. And she's like your person in the chair who's like feeding you information about it, but she's trying not to get caught. And every now and then when she calls you, it's like, oh, I gotta go. Like they're right behind me. And then for a while you're like, oh, I hope she's okay. And then another call you get like gets interrupted and she's like screaming. She's like, oh, Robin, help, they found me, blah, blah, blah. And then you don't hear from her for ages. And it's just you and Alan. And then you're like, shit, I hope my sister's okay. And then later you find out that they've imprisoned her or she got away or something. And she gives you these secret documents like, fuck, Alterra were trying to do something bad with all of this. And then you find out this big whole like plot of like government espionage that Alterra are actually really evil, which they kind of allude to in this anyway. And then you and your sister try and destroy them from the inside with Alan. And then you use his technology to like go up to the spaceship or go to the architect planet or collect Sam on your way there and you all leave, but you like try and destroy Altera on your way out. Something like that, you know? That's the kind of story I would love, because I think I would be more emotionally invested in that, because there's bigger stakes involved in that. This one, it felt like there was no stakes. I came to find out what happened to my sister. Turns out it's kind of what they said it was. There's a little bit more to it. But I didn't feel threatened by anything. I didn't feel an urgency for anything. In the original Subnautica, you're stranded, so your urgency is to get off the planet as soon as possible. And then you find this whole backstory about what happened on the planet. This one, you know the backstory of the planet. You know the creatures that are here. You know what happened. We're retreading some of the same turf. And then it's just, there was no stakes in anything. I didn't have any urgency to get off the planet. I didn't have any urgency to find out what happened to my sister. Sure, I wanted to. There was no real urgency to get Alan's body back. He kept alluding to things here and there, but it was just the fact that it was a game and I had to complete the game steps for that. So I don't know. I just didn't really connect with it as much as I did the first game. It's still a decent game, and if this is your first venture into Subnautica, it's still going to tide you over very, very well. It's still a very fun experience. But those are just some of my thoughts. I'd still highly recommend it. I still think it's a decent follow-up to the original Subnautica, but it's more of like an expansion, like a DLC sort of thing, than it is a fully fledged sequel. I would love to see more of the architect stuff. That stuff always tickles my fancy. The stuff with Alan was my favorite part of this game. And getting to put back together his body and then seeing him in action and seeing how powerful he really is and how powerful the architects are. But then it talked about them leaving and going back to their home planet and all that stuff, so I would love to see stuff like that. Or I would just love to see them do more sci-fi stuff, because I think they're a really, really talented dev studio, and I think their eye for stuff is really good. So I just want to see what they do next. Maybe take on a different sort of game. I think they said they were working on something else, so that would be cool to see. But yeah, the stuff with Sam kind of felt like it fell a little flat for me. The Alan stuff, I felt like should have been the main story. It kind of felt like there was two like B-side stories going on, and the main story was never really present. Like I'm the main character in the game, but I didn't really feel like it. I felt like I was living up to my sister's legacy, but then also following Alan. I felt like I was just kind of like a bystander in everybody else's story. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you think I'm full of shit, and maybe you think that the game was amazing and that I'm wrong, and that's totally fine as well. It's just my personal sort of feelings as I was going through it. And the stuff about the bacteria and it releasing and mutating and all that stuff was just like, yeah, I get it, but again, didn't really feel too threatening. I feel like we needed to have more of that Altera are bad, it kind of like looming over me, like someone was going to come get me at some point. But I felt like I just had free reign to do whatever I want, even though I was using their technology and like building stuff that they, like their blueprints and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, feels a little strange. But anyway, that was Subnautica Below Zero. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had a blast playing this. It's so fun to have a series like this that you can just sit down, relax, enjoy, take your time with it, explore as much as you want, and have people every day react to it and give feedback and tell their stories and talk about how much they liked coming home every day and after work or school or something, and having an episode from Jacksepticeye to watch. So it warmed my heart to see people's reactions to this series, which is funny because it was all about terrifying cold temperatures. But yeah, that ending I'm going to think about for a while. That was really cool, because the ending to the first one hit me hard and it was fun and it had a lot of spectacle to it, but this took it up to 11. That was dope. I want more of that. I want to see what they can really do as a dev studio if they focus in on that sort of like big cosmic shit. That was awesome.